Here we go. Oh, now it's time for decision making. Chapter 8 of Life and Social Skills. Decision making is the process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and assessing alternative solutions. Like, shall I buy this computer or not? Shall I call a friend to help me to decide? According to Drucker, a decision is a judgment. It is a choice between alternatives. It is rarely a choice between right and wrong. It is at best a choice between almost right and probably wrong. A manager by profession is a decision maker. Uncertainty is his opponent. Overcoming it is his mission. Therefore, decision making is crucial, especially when you become a manager. These are the concepts to be covered in decision making. Limitations of rational decision making model. Individual rationality is limited by their ability to conduct analysis and think through competing alternatives. Models for decision making. These are the 4 different decision making models, vary in terms of how experienced or motivated a decision maker is to make a choice. Individual versus group decision making. An individual generally makes prompt decisions while a group is dominated by various people. What are your individual decision-making styles? And why do you think decision fails? And guidelines for decision-making. Decision-making is the process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and assessing alternative resolutions. Using a step-by-step decision-making process can help you make more deliberate, thoughtful decisions by organizing relevant information and defining alternatives. This approach increases the chances that you will choose the most satisfying alternative possible. Step 1. Identify the decision or recognize the problem. You realize that you need to make a decision. Try to clearly define the nature of the decision you must make. This first step is very important. Step 2. Gather relevant information or facts. Collect some pertinent information before you make your decision. What information is needed, the best sources of information, and how to get it. This step involves both internal and external work. Step 3. Identify the alternatives or generate ideas. As you collect information, you will probably identify several possible paths of action or alternatives. You can also use your imagination and additional information to construct new alternatives. In this step, you will list all possible and desirable alternatives. Step 4. Weigh the evidence. Draw on your information and emotions to imagine what it would be like if you carried out each of the alternatives to the end. Evaluate whether the need identified in step 1 would be met or resolved through the use of each alternatives. As you go through this difficult internal process, you will begin to favor certain alternatives. Step 5. Choose among alternatives. Once you have weighed all the evidence, you are ready to select the alternatives that seems to be best one for you. You may even choose a combination of alternatives. Step 6. Take action or implement. You are now ready to take some positive action by beginning to implement the alternative you chose in step 5. Be sure to monitor. Step 7. Assess the results. In this final step, consider the results of your decision and evaluate whether or not it has resolved or the need you identified in step 1. If the decision has not met the identified need, you may want to repeat certain steps of the process to make a new decision. Decision makers do not have complete knowledge of all the facts surrounding the problems. They cannot foresee future events with complete accuracy. Therefore, it is not always possible to choose the optimum solution. Number 1. In terms of problem. Seldom consensus used to define the problem. Differentiate facts From opinion, a fact is a statement that can be proven true or false. An opinion is an expression of a person's feeling that cannot be proven. Identify what standard is violated. This ethical decision-making model provides a simple guidelines to assist decision. Number 2, generate alternative solutions, meaning the first acceptable solution is usually accepted, best known as our instinct. Alternatives are based on what's successful in the past. Evaluating alternatives against the selection criteria or choosing the alternative that best satisfies the selection criteria. Specify alternatives that are consistent with goals. Most often, an alternative is not a single action but a set of actions. Evaluating alternatives. Limited information available about each alternative. Evaluate alternatives by examining the benefits and drawbacks of each alternative. During the evaluation of alternatives, careful consideration is given. Satisfactory solutions, not optimal ones, are usually accepted. Find an optimal solution seeks to find a satisfactory alternative. Do not evaluate main effects and side effects, which means you have to find ways or generate more ideas and implement and follow up. Resistance to change is a universal phenomenon. Resistance to change is an essential factor to be considered in any change process, since the proper management of resistance is the key for change success or failure. Not always clear what part of the solution should be monitored or measured in follow-up, so therefore, the measures of effectiveness are the emergency response time, false alarm rate, operational availability, and total cost of ownership. Try to look at the comparison of structured and unstructured for the decision making. The approach, type, knowledge, probability risk, alternative available, and goals. Constraints of rational decision making. In the snap box, we may make snap judgment, and most of the time, it's in short range. The analytical box pertains to define goals, and sometimes you can be so perfectionist. In flex part, there is adjustment and being flexible. And lastly, the contingency is more like team building before reaching to conclusions. Basically, these parts are component activity in decision making. These are the differences in decision making between Western and Japanese. The process by which a decision is made is affected by so many variables that even when comparing Western and Asian decision-making processes, we must take into account that no two Western or Asian countries are exactly the same. Germany and Denmark, for example, are two countries that follow two very different decision-making methodologies. More heads are better than one. Groupthink is a phenomenon when a group of people get together and start to think collectively with one mind. A number of problems are attributed to groupthink. Some of the group decision-making problems include conditions and symptoms. Group decision-making is a type of participatory process in which multiple individuals acting collectively analyze problems or situations, consider and evaluate alternative courses of action, and select from among the alternatives a solution or solutions. The number of people involved in group decision-making varies greatly, but often ranges from 2 to 7. The individuals in a group may be demographically similar or quite diverse. Decision-making groups may be relatively informal in nature or formally designated and charged with a specific goal. The process used to arrive at decisions may be unstructured or structured. Great products are a team effort. That's why Nimewashi, or planning and building a consensus, is a part of the Toyota product production system. Nimewashi is the first step in the decision-making process. It is sharing of information about the decisions that will be made in order to involve all employees in the process. During the Nimewashi, the company is seeking for the opinion of the employees about the decision, providing quality of decision, asking why for 5 times, building consensus, and Deming cycles, or the PDCA. Considering alternative solutions follows that based approach, means helps teams stay innovative while reducing development costs. Different people, different sets of alternatives. Different people might use different sets of alternatives. Just like that. It's not always the same. Turn conflict into win-win situation. Win-win outcomes occur when each side of a dispute feels that they have won. Presenting decision on one page. Proposal discussed with all, yet not every proposal puts your business best foot forward. Business proposal generally begins with an in-depth findings discussion. Agreement between presentation. There should be approval from the members or head before presenting. The appeal can be considered by the council and a formal decision rendered. Not only with the US automobile manufacturers, but also with other Japanese car manufacturers. Senior engineers and managers in Toyota were trained to think in sets of alternative solutions as well as to think in a set-based concurrent engineering scenario. In the course of devising countermeasures for a given problem solvers are strongly urged to consider multiple alternatives countermeasures even at the risk of delaying decisions. Not only does this approach foster creativity in problem solving among the employees, but it also offers the other participants more tangible inputs into the final agreement. The A3 process is a structured template for solving problems in a continuous manner. The A3 approach is also known as SPS, which stands for Systematic Problem Solving. The purpose of the A3 report is to document the learning, decisions, and planning involved with solving a problem, facilitate communication with people in other departments, provide structure to problem solving so as to maximize learning. This is just an example of A3 report. Decision styles. The 4 styles of decision making are directive, conceptual, analytical, and behavioral options. Every leader has a preference of how to analyze a problem and come to a solution. Analytical style decision making describes people who feel comfortable with ambiguity but are motivated to find the best or most comprehensive solution. Directive style decision making describes people who prefer structure and are motivated by the results their decisions will bring them. Conceptual style decision making describes people who enjoy the ambiguity of open-minded options and are motivated to make an impact on the world. And behavioral style decision making describes people who prefer structure and stability and are motivated to maintain harmony. Before reaching the ultimate decision, it's important to weigh the pros and the cons to ensure that you're making the best decision possible. Narrow your options, evaluate the significance, don't sweat the small stuff, do your research, and get a well-informed opinion. When group is vulnerable, group is affected by groupthink, ignore alternatives, and tend to take irrational actions that dehumanize other groups. Escalation of commitment is a human behavior pattern in which an individual or group facing increasingly negative outcomes from a decision, action, or investment, nevertheless continue the behavior instead of altering course. Level of moral development. Moral development is the process through which someone develops proper attitudes and behaviors towards other people in society. based on social and cultural norms, rules, and laws. So basically, we have different types of moral development, or it depends on which level we are now. Conceptual blocks are thinking barriers that keep people stuck in thinking patterns which is unproductive. These blocks prevent creativity and free thinking, which is extremely beneficial in the creative problem solving that is needed in today's leadership. Guidelines for decision making. Setting a decision making process can save your time down the road for your next big project. Try implementing these practices to make it better. Marshal the facts to arrange in proper order. Consult your feelings. Go to someone for information or advice. Use wise timings. Just simply don't waste time to unnecessary things. Don't infer too much. Don't guess, that's it. Keep the decision flexible. This decision-making style works with several options that can change or be replaced as new information becomes available. Follow through. Continue doing or thinking about it until you have done everything possible. Have courage. Having courage means to face your fears and move through them and past them. Decisions to save skin, beware of. Think for yourselves and make your own decision. Thank you so much for your time. Have a nice day. Don't forget to message me if you have any clarifications.